This is gonna be fun, man. This is gonna be fun. I'm excited about this whole thing.
Yeah, okay.
Too close to yourself. Maybe a little bit more. Okay. Woohoo! Woohoo! What's happening, party people? Welcome to Punchboard Party. My name is Daniel. This is Father Greg. We are back after our top 100 board games of all time. We did it. That series has come and gone. And we thank you, all of you, our new subscribers, and people who watched the video. It got a lot of traction. We got about 4,000 views as of the recording of this video. I'm pretty happy about that. Kind of excited. Great. People seem to like us. So thank you for liking us. We like you back, party people. Now we are launching into a whole new thing. Father Greg, what are we doing for our next series?
Yeah, so we're going to try to review the top 10 games that apparently you all think are the best. Don't mean you necessarily, but you as the
best board games of all time.
That's right, according to Board Game Geek, all of the various people of you who have gone out and reviewed them and told us that these are in fact the games that should be in our top 10. I'm going to tell you how very wrong you are.
So this is going to be an interesting series. So each video we're going to focus on one game. We're going to play it, and then we're going to review it. And so there'll be some footage of us playing, pictures or whatever, and then just us jack-jawing about the game, what we think. Because this whole idea came because I hadn't played any of the top 10 games on Board Game Geek when we started kind of brainstorming this video series. Since we started brainstorming, we've played Brass. So I have played Brass on the top 10, but apart from that, I haven't played any. And so we thought, that's a shame. Punchboard Party, and I haven't played, but we're going to talk in this video about kind of why that was, or why that is, or what we think about this top 10 without having played all the games there, and what we're excited about and what we're not.
I've played maybe 4 of the games in the top 10, that I have some familiarity with, but yeah, like a lot of the top 10, if I look at them, I'm there's a certain degree of unfamiliarity with them, for sure.
Yeah, okay, so let's go through them, and then we can talk about our impressions. So what are they?
So currently, as it stands, it is, number 1 is Gloomhaven. Number 2, we got Pandemic Legacy. Number 3, Brass Birmingham, specifically. Number 4, Gloomhaven, Jaws of the Lion. So 2 Gloomhavens, both on the top 10. That's weird. Then we got Terraforming Mars. Then we got Twilight Imperium. Oh, that's going to be fun. Then we got the Gaia Project. That'll be another good one. Star Wars Rebellion. Then Spirit Island. And then just creeping in at number 10, War of the Ring.
And I'm kind of hoping that by the time we get there, it slips on off and Through the Ages gets back on.
I don't know that Through the Ages is easier than War of the Ring, but maybe just slightly.
Wow. So, okay, first thing that I notice about this top 10 is that it's heavy, man.
Yeah.
It's a million tons heavy. And when I very first got into the hobby, I was looking at, okay, how do I find out what's good? How do I find out what I should play? And I went on to Board Game Geek and I looked at their rankings. And I was like, I don't understand. I can't get into this. This looks like nothing like what I've ever played before. It's like, it seems inaccessible, or seemed inaccessible to me. And so then I just saddled right into sort of like a medium, light, family weight gamer style for a while, and then that kind of creeped up to, I can do medium heavy pretty well, and I like that. But I still haven't really breached beyond that. And so when I look at this list, it just confirms all of my early suspicions about how does this happen?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting, overall sort of broad question of the hobby of board gaming, which is you're not going to see Sushi Go or Air, Land, and Sea in the top 100. Those might be great games, but the experience maybe that they provide is just a little bit too small for some people. So you get this game that maybe has this great experience but requires this huge amount of input, where you need to spend an hour learning the rules. You need to spend another 3 hours playing the game. There's this really kind of heavy load that you have to cross just to cross the threshold into enjoying it. But once you do, it provides this great experience that's kind of an epic, So I think that for sure is like, that's the only reason that I haven't played some of these games is just like,
Right.
wow, that game sounds like it's going to take a real long time.
And that's a great point because here's my theory as to what happened, right? So only people who really, really love board games are going to be spending time to rank and rate their games. And then so out of the people that really, really like board games, a lot of them are going to be fine with heavier, more immersive experiences. And then you have another factor where people who are kind of going from whatever board games they play growing up into the hobby, I think a pretty large percentage of those will be Risk players, Axis and Allies players, these kind of big, chunky games. Because when you mentioned board games when I was in high school, you were automatically looking at an 8-hour playtime. Like, that was just kind of the norm for the kind of games that we were playing. And they weren't necessarily hobby games. They were just mass market Risk or whatever. But they just, like Monopoly, they just took a long time to play.
For sure.
So you say to someone who's kind of getting into the hobby from that world, and you say, hey, one of the best games is Twilight Imperium. It'll take at least 8 hours to play. That's not really an obstacle. You know, you can kind of do that. So I do find myself running into gamers that are sort of less into the hobby than I am, or less familiar with the hobby than I am, that have played these top 10 games because that's what people who were introducing them to the hobby were playing, and they said, oh yeah, you can catch on. And I think if you jump in at that level, it's easier than coming in the way we did, where we were kind of like, okay, what's sort of like at my level? And so then we just kind of stay there. Someone actually commented on our top 10 video saying the top 10 medium Euro games.
Right.
That's what they coined our video as, which is fair. And that's why I'm really excited about this series, is that we get to kind of go to unfamiliar territory. We get to go to enemy soil kind of like figure out what's really going on about these games. So tell me what you're most excited about doing this series.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm excited about the experience of some of these. Like, okay, yeah, I've never played Twilight Imperium. I've never really wanted to. Like, I've passed it at the store. I've thought, there's a big lion on the cover. It looks kind of cool. But, man, when I encounter, like, that a prospect of, like, 7-8 hours, whatever it is that it's going to take to play this game, that is, like, I've never would that game ever appear on my shelf, but, like, kind of forcing myself to be like, okay, we're going to sit down and we're going to plan one game of it just to kind of see where that takes us. I think as a kind of experience thing, it'll be cool. It's kind of like trying skydiving or something. It's not something I might want to do every day, but it's like a good experience to like say I checked it off my bucket list. I played Twilight Imperium.
Well, and that's the thing that's scaring me about this list is that there's a few games that will fit that category on this list. So Twilight Imperium does that. War of the Ring for me is kind of that sort of daunting, like, this is going to take a while and it's going to be big and beefy and maybe not all that enjoyable while we're playing it. Like, I can picture myself getting 4 hours into Twilight Imperium or even like an hour and a half into War of the Ring and just be like, we're still doing this? Like, this is like, that's what I'm imagining happening with some of these bigger beasts. Whereas there's going to be some of these that are going to be like a regular game night where we'll, play them a couple times and have good thoughts about them and that'll be fine. Like Brass already. It's like, okay, we can do that again. That's not crazy. Terraforming Mars.
That'll be probably the easiest one.
I'm quite excited about Terraforming Mars because that kind of still fits into my wheelhouse. A medium Euro card game that people really love. I stayed away from it for a long time, but now that we're gearing up for the list, that's the one that's kind of like, I think I'm going to naturally enjoy that the most.
Right.
So that's going to be fun for me. So I'm quite excited about that.
And then there are other games that are just like, not even necessarily complex, but involve a lot. I don't think Gloomhaven's that complex of a game, but I don't know how we're going to do Gloomhaven. We probably won't play a whole, the whole game of it, but at least a number of different campaigns to at least, get a sense of it. But like Pandemic Legacy, that's kind of a game where you have to play the whole thing. It's not a hard game. Pandemic is a game that most people are familiar with, but you have to play it like, 14, 20 times, whatever it is. Like, there's a lot to go on there. So there's a lot of, some of them aren't necessarily hard games, but they're all games that involve a lot of preparation to do.
Yeah, so I'm a little intrigued by Gloomhaven and then Jaws of the Lion.
Yeah.
And just how that's going to feel and like, should we just not play all that stuff all in one weekend and just kind of get it out of our system? like Gloomhaven, I was never attracted to playing Gloomhaven. I kind of have a bit of I have a draw towards D&D, but never enough to actually get me to the table. I've had a few opportunities and I've always chickened out last minute. It just seems, my main complaint with D&D, or not complaint, but just my suspicion and why I don't want to play it, is that that's a lot of time to spend in one game night. And accomplishing relatively little than what you accomplish in other tabletop board games. And so that's the kind of fear I have with Gloomhaven, is just we're getting in this big fantasy world, but then we actually sit down and play, we're having one encounter with a troll. And that's an hour or an hour and a half play session. I don't know, but that's the feeling I got. But then I was told that it's a hand management cooperative Euro game. And so I'm okay, maybe. I like this idea, because don't you play a card, discard a card kind of thing, or something?
There's kind of a, you have to use
that
your
Euro
cards
retention.
as kind of a health meter as well.
So I'm intrigued by that, but then to kind of do Gloomhaven twice, I'm I think Gloomhaven is one of those games where I'm only going to want to.
It's almost possible to just play Jaws of the Lion and just play the campaign that has to offer.
No. We have to do this. We have to do this authentically. We don't cut corners for our party people. We do this full on. So Gloomhaven, I'm probably the most nervous about in terms of how involved it's going to be and what my perceived experience of it is going to be. I'm not anticipating that I'll love it or like it all that much. I don't know. I might be surprised. I mean, it's number one ranked game on Board Game Geek. So there's something about it. But is it just a few people that love it, or is it actually got steam?
Right.
Twilight Imperium, that would be the game that I am most afraid of and most eager. That those are the closest. I think I'm really going to like that. I think that's going to be in 8 hours that won't feel like 8 hours. I think that's going to feel like I'll be engaged the whole time. So I'm going to have my eye on what other players are doing. I'm going to be really focused, and I'm going to be just driving things forward. And because I think those mechanisms are core Euro mechanisms, it's Puerto Rico mechanisms. So I think I'm going to be into that. Quite a bit.
I'm looking forward to Star Wars Rebellion. I've never played Star Wars Rebellion. It seems like an interesting, two-player. I like a good, just two-player, heavy kind of skirmish-style game. So I've never gotten around to playing it. So I think that's probably the game I'm most excited about. Yeah.
Well, I don't know if I've ever played a two-player game that was a heavy Euro two-player game.
Right, a lot of times two-player games come in a little nice, tiny box.
And even recently, Sarah and I started, she was falling asleep so we didn't get to finish, but we started playing Targi, which again is one of those two-player Cosmos Edition smaller games. But that kind of is a medium-weight Euro game.
Right, little
in a
box.
two-player package. And that's the biggest I've experienced. So on that list, we have Star Wars Rebellion and War of the Ring as big, meaty two-player games. And Star Wars Rebellion, it's intriguing because I love Star Wars. That's really fun. I like this whole idea. But for one player to be the Empire, for one player to be the Rebellion, how does that work? How do you be all that? How do you be all that one player each? And just the amount of things that you're trying to do. I'm interested to see if that just if the hidden movement aspects of that will get annoying, or if it'll be fun the whole time. Again, these games promise a lot because they're such highly rated. They're there for a reason, right? So, is there anything on this list that that you're going to hate?
Oh, it's a good question. I've played one session of Gloomhaven, one little campaign. So I don't know that I love, it wasn't in my top 100. Maybe I just played one game. I didn't think it, merited being there after one play. But so I'm anxious to get a few more plays under my belt. I'm not convinced I'm going to love it. I think a lot of these games, maybe this is just kind of a general thing, the kind of hype factor that draws it. I feel like I'm going to be negative about a lot of these just because I'm going to be I'm expecting an amazing experience.
Right.
And what I'm going to get is what a lot of board games offer.
Right.
Just that was kind of cool. But
that's interesting.
That does not deserve to be number 5 on the,
Because what are we going to say that we would rather play than these games once we've played them? That's going to be an interesting factor. Spirit Island, I'm predicting, will be a one-time slog and I'll never want to play that again.
I suspect that as well.
I think I'm going to have no interest in Spirit Island after we play this once. Again, cooperative games for me and for you more, are just kind of like instant dislikes. For me, I have a bit more of wiggle room for liking them as long as they're really good. But it's kind of one of those things where like you have to be an excellent cooperative game, and again, apparently it is. But then you put on like a huge rules overhead, really confusing explanation.
Lots of asymmetry.
You know, so simple gameplay I hear, but just to get there is really tough. So again, you get me around the table, I don't know. Like I'm going to be sort of like, was it worth the effort? So that's where I'm putting my money for biggest sort of disappointment, or it wouldn't be a disappointment because I'd be expecting to hate it.
Right. Be interesting to see how many of these games that we play. Some of these games we're gonna have to buy. Some maybe have friends that own. But how many of these games we keep? Like how many of these games we decide to hold on to and say this is gonna take up a spot on our shelf?
I think if we purchase Twilight Imperium, it's gonna stay just for the art piece. Will we keep these games? I don't know. And so Gaia Project, that's going to be another one for me that you're mentioning off camera, that well, you like Terra Mystica, so you're going to like Gaia Project. It's going to be interesting for me to see if Gaia Project will surpass Terra Mystica, or if the fantasy theme and the different things you do in Terra Mystica I just prefer or like more. The reason why I didn't run out and get Gaia Project as soon as it came out was that it wasn't wooden pieces or components. It was plastic components. And I was immediately like, no, I'd rather the tactile experience of the wooden components in Terra Mystica. And then, but people say good things about it. It's this high. I'm sure it'll be a delightful experience. I'm expecting to like it. I'm expecting to enjoy it. But the whole time I'm going to be asking myself, would I rather play this than Terra Mystica? And so I'm going to, it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, no, it's good. I'm interested in War of the Ring. I think that'll be fun. It'll be a slog, but that's a game that like I would consider keeping on my shelf if it's good. Yeah, there's a few out there.
I just saw a Shut Up and Sit Down review of Legend of the Five Armies.
Okay.
Which is kind of like a cousin to War of the Ring. And so then they were saying, and I've been drawn to that game more, but then they were just making War of the Ring sound really good in comparison. So I'm like, okay, I can do, and dudes on a map, this kind of, war game sort of thing has never been in my wheelhouse. But I think 2 players sitting with a good friend, I think it's going to be an enjoyable time. So I'm looking forward to War of the Ring that way. Brass, excited to play again just to get a little bit more to talk about. But that's aces. That's great. So that's already, to me, proven that the games on this list might actually be on this list for a reason. So already kind of, okay, right. Off to a good start. Let's see what else. Any other thoughts before we sign off here today?
Yeah, no, I think I'm excited about it. You're right. There is a lot to be nervous about. It's a bit of a daunting task. I'm not sure if this is. I don't think we're gonna be releasing a video weekly. Maybe, I don't know. How it all sort of plays out. Like finding the people for a game, Twilight Imperium is not a 2-player game. You want, a whole group of people. Some games, maybe Spirit Island will need 3 or 4 to do it justice.
I do want to play around with these games and kind of flex them a little bit. I don't want to so Twilight Imperium, I don't think we'll play more than once. That's just logistically, no.
Right.
And you're right. Like this series, this is a challenge. This is like a bigger thing for us because scheduling wise, you're only in on the weekends, getting people together to do this stuff. So be patient with us, party people, but urge us on. Let us know down in the comments below what on the top 10 on Board Game Geek, what of these best games of all time are actually the best games of all time as far as you consider them. What games are you excited for us to play? What games are you nervous on our behalf for us to play?
And if you've played both Gloomhaven and Jaws of the Lion, let us know if you think we need to play both.
We do. We don't need your opinion. We're going to do it. Don't be silly. So, here I am, someone having played only 1 of the top 10. Father Greg played 4. We're going to experience a whole world. And this will put our top 100 into total turmoil. You won't know what to do after this. So
that's right. We'll tell you how many of these games will make it onto our top 100.
So really excited to embark on this journey. Bear with us. Coming at you next week. We'll probably start with Brass Birmingham because that's what we kind of got in the can. So start with Brass Birmingham next week. Best games ever according to Board Game Geek. Until next time, party people, have the best day.